Congratulations! You did it. You bought into the dream. You packed your entire life into a U-Haul, abandoned whatever freezing, high-tax, rust-belt state you used to call home, and headed south toward the promised land of infinite sunshine, zero state income tax, and legendary economic growth. You were told that real estate only goes up, that tech companies were moving their headquarters by the hour, and that if you did not lock in a lease right this second, you would be priced out of humanity forever. Except nobody bothered to tell you that America's real estate developers were currently operating on a level of unhinged caffeine-fueled optimism that would make a 1920s Wall Street speculator blush. Right now, across a massive swath of the United States, a quiet, brutal, and utterly chaotic phenomenon is unfolding. The great rental panic of the early 2020s has collided headfirst with a historic wall of new apartment supply, and the result is a total psychological breakdown for institutional landlords. Rent isn't just softening. In specific, highly targeted boomtowns, it is completely collapsing faster than anyone expected. We have been conditioned by the mainstream media to believe that housing affordability is a permanent, terminal disease that can never be cured. The common consensus is that you will live with roommates until you're 80, pay $4,000 a month for a studio apartment with a broken radiator, and thank your landlord for the privilege. But reality is a funny thing. It turns out that when you build more apartments in a 3-year window than a city added during the entire previous decade, the basic laws of supply and demand actually work. Outsiders look at these booming Sunbelt metros and think they are still hyper-expensive playgrounds for wealthy remote workers. They see the flashy new glass towers, the artisanal taco shops, and the luxury pool decks, and they assume the party is still going strong. They are completely missing the economic reality on the ground. Landlords who were projecting 8% rent growth year after year are currently staring at empty hallways, sweating through their tailored suits, and offering desperate, embarrassing bribes just to get someone to sign a piece of paper. We are talking 2, 3, or even 4 months of free rent, waived parking fees, free television packages, and complimentary dog grooming just to keep their occupancy numbers high enough to satisfy the regional banking overlords. Are you currently renting in America? Or are you sitting on the sidelines waiting to see how far this market can drop? Drop a comment down below and tell me if your local landlord is still trying to raise your rent, or if they have started acting suspiciously polite lately. Let's look at the absolute ground zero of this oversupply madness. Welcome to the countdown of the 10 U.S. markets where the rental bubble has officially popped. Number 10, Austin, Texas. If you want to see what happens when an entire city tries to become a Silicon Valley clone, in the span of 36 months, you look at Austin. The narrative was flawless. Elon Musk was here. Joe Rogan was here. Every tech bro with a Patagonia vest was moving here. And the rent was destined to match San Francisco by the end of the decade. Then the real world walked in. According to recent housing data from groups like the Pew Charitable Trusts, Austin's median rent didn't just stumble. It fell from near-record highs of over $1,500 down to around $1,290. In major apartment complexes with 50 or more units, rents plunged over 7% in a single year, marking the sharpest rental drop of any large metropolitan area in the country. The lifestyle here went from an exclusive, gate-kept tech paradise to a massive game of musical chairs where the renters have all the chairs, and the landlords are begging for a turn. You can walk into a brand-new, ultra-luxury building with a rooftop dog park and an organic juice bar, and the leasing agent will treat you like a visiting head of state, instantly sliding a lease across the desk that includes 2 months of free rent and a waived security deposit. The downside, of course, is that the city is currently an absolute obstacle course of construction crane dust, detours, and half-empty mid-rise concrete blocks. That makes certain neighborhoods feel less like a cultural mecca and more like an unfinished SimCity map. It turns out that while you can easily manifest a viral tech boom on social media, you cannot easily manifest enough actual humans to fill 30,000 newly constructed apartments simultaneously. Number 9. Cape Coral, Florida. Next up, we journey to the land of endless canals and severe insurance trauma. Cape Coral was the absolute poster child for the wild, speculative pandemic migration surge, drawing in thousands of retirees and remote workers looking to escape lockdowns and northern winters. The hangover has officially arrived, and it is a bad one. Data from regional vacancy trackers shows Cape Coral-Fort Myers anchoring the absolute bottom of national rent growth, with rental prices crashing by a staggering 9.1% year-over-year. The vacancy rate in the area has ballooned into double digits, hovering over 11% as an unprecedented wave of newly built multifamily units hits the market all at once. Living here right now means navigating a surreal landscape where beautiful, newly completed duplexes and apartment complexes sit entirely dark at night, reflecting off the local waterways with zero cars parked in the driveways. You get the pristine Florida lifestyle with the palm trees and the coastal air, but you also get the creeping anxiety of realizing your entire neighborhood is technically a speculative investment vehicle that is currently running out of gas. The catch is that while your rent might be crashing, your landlord is likely fighting for their life against astronomical property insurance hikes and dynamic utility costs, meaning that shiny new building might have deferred maintenance issues sooner than you think. But hey, at least you can look at the bright side. You are saving hundreds of dollars a month on rent, while watching institutional property managers experience genuine, unfiltered panic. Number 8. Phoenix. Arizona. Phoenix is a city built on the profound geological assumption that air conditioning will never fail, and that water is merely an optional suggestion. During the housing boom, developers looked at the vast, empty desert landscape and decided that the only logical move was to build sprawling apartment complexes as far as the eye could see. The desert rental market is currently drying up faster than a puddle in July. Real estate metrics show that Phoenix developers delivered new housing stock, equivalent to a mind-boggling 12% of the city's entire existing inventory, in just a 3-year span, with a massive supply wave overwhelming local demand. Vacancy rates have pushed toward 14%, forcing landlords to abandon their aggressive rent hikes and settle for modest 1 to 3% adjustments or outright price cuts. The culture in Phoenix right now is defined by a hilarious level of landlord desperation, with roughly 40% of all active rental listings dangling heavy concessions just to get people through the front door. You can roll up to a complex in the East Valley or North Phoenix, and they will practically hand you the keys to a 2-bedroom unit with a resort-style pool view for a price that would have been completely unthinkable 2 years ago. The trade-off is that you are living in a market that is fundamentally overbuilding its infrastructure, meaning you get to enjoy cheap rent while simultaneously wondering if the local aquifer will survive the next decade of commercial expansion. It is a wild time to be a tenant in the Valley of the Sun, provided you don't mind the ambient temperature matching the exact percentage drop of your landlord's portfolio value. Number 7. Sarasota. Florida. Sarasota used to be the quiet, upscale refuge for affluent retirees who wanted to look at fine art, stroll along white sand beaches, and avoid the chaotic energy of Miami or Orlando. Then the post-pandemic real estate gold rush happened, and Wall Street funds decided that Sarasota was the perfect place to build luxury rental communities for a demographic that apparently does not exist. The numbers are an absolute disaster for anyone who bought multifamily real estate here in 2023. Annual rent growth has plummeted by a brutal 8%, with local vacancy rates spiking up toward 10%, as a massive backlog of construction projects is finally delivered to the market. The lifestyle change is stark. The town has transitioned from an exclusive, high barrier to entry coastal haven into an absolute renter's buffet where luxury properties are openly cannibalizing each other's tenant bases. Landlords who expected wealthy remote workers to happily fork over $3,000 a month for a standard 2-bedroom unit are now staring at empty hallways and quietly dropping prices to levels that local service workers can actually afford. The downside is that this entire rental collapse is happening against a backdrop of severe economic vulnerability, where local retail businesses are struggling, and the cost of living outside of housing remains stubbornly high. But if you have ever wanted to live like a wealthy retired surgeon on a standard middle-class budget, Sarasota is currently handing out the keys with a massive discount banner attached. Number 6. Denver. Colorado. Denver is a city that spent the last 10 years convinced it was completely bulletproof. The logic was simple: everyone loves the mountains, everyone loves craft beer, and therefore, everyone will gladly pay an escalating premium to live in a modern box apartment in the mile-high city until the end of time. The reality check has officially hit the Rocky Mountains. National rent trackers show Denver consistently appearing on the list of the worst-performing rental markets in the country, with prices sliding steadily into negative territory as thousands of new apartment units hit the market simultaneously. The cultural vibe has shifted from hyper-competitive housing scrambles to a sluggish, oversupplied market where tenants can openly ghost leasing agents who refuse to waive property fees. The days of fighting 50 other people for a mediocre apartment near downtown are completely over. Instead, you get multiple follow-up emails from desperate property managers offering to pay for your moving truck. The catch here is that while apartment rents are dropping, the general cost of surviving in Denver, from state taxes to grocery bills and mountain transit, remains absurdly inflated, meaning your housing savings are often immediately absorbed by the general cost of mountain-adjacent existence. Still, watching corporate landlords realize that craft beer and a view of the Rockies cannot magically compensate for a massive oversupply of generic luxury boxes is an absolute joy to behold. Number 5. San Antonio. Texas. San Antonio has always been the historic, culturally rich, and structurally affordable sibling to the hyper-caffeinated tech economy of Austin. But during the real estate frenzy, developers looked at San Antonio's steady population growth and decided to apply the exact same overbuilding playbook that broke the market up north. The data shows that San Antonio is currently drowning in its own success, with rent prices sliding down across the metro area as a massive pipeline of suburban apartment complexes and build-to-rent communities finishes construction all at once. The vacancy rates have climbed significantly, turning what was once a balanced working-class housing market into a hyper-competitive battleground, where landlords are actively poaching tenants from each other. Living in San Antonio right now means you can secure a remarkably spacious, brand-new suburban home or luxury apartment for a fraction of what it would cost in any other major Texas metro. The lifestyle remains authentically Texan and rich in culture, but the rental market has become so soft that tenants are routinely breaking leases just to move across the street for a better concession package. The primary downside is that the local job market is not expanding at the same chaotic rate as the housing supply, meaning that if you don't bring an outside remote job with you, the local wage growth might not feel quite as spectacular as your rental discounts. It turns out that building thousands of luxury tier apartments in a market defined by steady blue-collar economic fundamentals is a fantastic way to induce a corporate panic attack. Number 4. Nashville. Tennessee. Nashville spent the last 5 years acting like the absolute center of the cultural universe. Every weekend, the city was flooded with bachelorette parties, aspiring country musicians, and California transplants who fell in love with the idea of living in a trendy neighborhood with a neon-lit skyline. The music has officially stopped for Nashville's institutional apartment owners. The city's rental market is currently suffering from a severe case of overbuilding exhaustion, with active listing inventory exploding far beyond what the local population can realistically absorb. Rents are falling across the board, particularly in the flashy, newly developed mid-rise districts surrounding the downtown core. The lifestyle observation here is hilarious. The city has gone from a hyper-exclusive boomtown, where you needed a tech salary just to rent a converted garage, to a market where brand new apartment buildings are blasting country music outside their leasing offices to attract anyone with a credit score over 600. You can easily negotiate multiple months of free rent, free gym memberships, and waive community fees because developers build for a hypothetical population of infinite content creators who never actually arrived. The trade-off is that Nashville's rapid expansion has severely strained its infrastructure, meaning you get to enjoy cheap rent while sitting in some of the worst suburban traffic bottlenecks in the southeastern United States. But hey, at least you can listen to a local songwriter sing about heartbreak while you read the heartbreak financial updates your corporate landlord is sending to their investors. Number 3. Atlanta. Georgia. Atlanta is a massive, sprawling economic engine that has traditionally swallowed up surrounding farmland to build endless waves of suburban housing. But over the last few years, the real estate money shifted heavily into high-density urban apartments, transforming historic neighborhoods into corridors of identical mid-rise luxury complexes. The chickens have officially come home to roost in the Atlanta rental market. The city is facing a massive backlog of active listing inventory, forcing a wave of consecutive price cuts across almost every major zip code, as landlords realize that the post-pandemic migration wave has officially plateaued. The cultural reality on the ground is that renters who were trapped in aging, overpriced buildings are now aggressively upgrading to brand-new luxury developments for the exact same price, if not less. The leverage has completely flipped. If your current Atlanta landlord refuses to lower your rent upon renewal, you can literally walk to blocks in any direction and find a competing building that will give you a month of free rent just for signing an online form. The downside to this oversupply paradise is that Atlanta's core urban issues, including rising commercial vacancies and persistent transit frustrations, remain completely unresolved, meaning your cheaper apartment still comes with the standard big city headaches. It is a classic example of a market where speculative building completely outpaced real-world infrastructure, turning a landlord's dream portfolio into a tenant's absolute playground. Number 2. Las Vegas. Nevada. Las Vegas is a city entirely predicated on the concept of high-stakes gambling, so it should surprise absolutely nobody that its local rental market behaves exactly like a leveraged bet on a roulette wheel. When the remote work revolution hit, thousands of workers from Los Angeles and San Francisco realized they could swap their tiny California apartments for a massive suburban house near the Strip. The bet has gone completely sideways for the landlords who bought into the peak of the market. Las Vegas is now seeing some of the most consistent rent growth deceleration in the western United States, with prices sliding backwards as a massive wave of single-family rentals and newly completed apartment communities fights over a dwindling pool of inbound California transplants. Living in Vegas right now as a renter means you hold all the cards. The market is so heavily oversaturated that institutional landlords are offering deep discounts and structural concessions that look suspiciously like casino promotions. You can get a modern, gated apartment with a resort pool and palm tree landscaping for prices that make coastal Californians weep with envy. The catch, as always with Vegas, is that the local economy remains hypersensitive to national consumer spending and entertainment trends, meaning your cheap rent comes with a side of economic volatility that can shift overnight. But if you are willing to wager on the dessert lifestyle, the current rental market is offering the best odds tenants have seen in over half a decade. Number 1. Colorado Springs, Colorado. And finally, we reached the number 1 spot on our list of rental market corrections, Colorado Springs. For years, Colorado Springs was marketed as the cheaper, more scenic, and less chaotic alternative to Denver, drawing in a massive influx of military families, outdoor enthusiasts, and young professionals who wanted a view of Pikes Peak without the premium price tag. The supply tsunami has officially made landfall at the base of the mountains. According to long-term cumulative housing data, the massive oversupply of new multifamily construction has completely erased nearly a half-decade of rental gains, leaving 5-year cumulative rent growth at a pathetic 3.7%. The market is so thoroughly drenched in available units that current rents have effectively reset to pre-boom trajectories. The lifestyle here has shifted dramatically from a high-stress, low-inventory environment to an absolute paradise for budget-conscious tenants who want to live near the mountains. You can scroll through local listing sites and find an endless parade of clean, modern apartments featuring dramatic mountain views, all offering immediate price drops and flexible lease terms. Because the supply pipeline completely overshot actual local household formation. The primary downside is that the local economy is heavily anchored by institutional and military employment, meaning wage growth is highly structured and won't match the speculative spikes that developers originally used to justify their luxury building costs. Colorado Springs stands as a monumental monument to what happens when real estate capital blindly chases a trend, resulting in a glorious Mountain View buyer's market where the corporate landlords are the ones left out in the cold. If you are currently looking at the rental market across the United States, it is incredibly easy to feel a sense of profound exhaustion. We have been bombarded for years with terrifying headlines about the death of the American dream, the permanent inflation of everyday life, and the reality of a housing market that seems designed to extract every single dollar from your paycheck. But if these 10 cities prove anything, it is that no real estate bubble is permanent. No corporate algorithm can override the physical reality of oversupply, and no market can stay irrational forever when a historic volume of concrete, steel, and drywall is delivered to the ground. The leverage is shifting back to normal people, one free month of rent at a time. Are we looking at a temporary market correction that will stabilize by next year? Or is this the first sign of a much larger structural reset for the American Sun Belt? Hit that subscribe button if you want to keep tracking the real data behind the headlines. And let me know in the comments which town we should break down in our next market intelligence report. Until next time, stay grounded, keep your eyes on the supply pipelines, and never let a desperate landlord tell you that inventory is low.